So, good morning, everyone. Just to give you a brief status update of what we did, the issue we were discussing during the last call on the fan out, I think I've found a solution. It's just that we might have to set up a unique message ID as I described in the earlier, the Telegram chat. I managed to test that as well, and it seems to be working. And as Dror suggested, probably we use user op hash as the unique identifier across multiple chain, mempools. So I think that should work. I was thinking I should probably add an entry in the P2P spec recommending that this should be the case whenever someone is implementing, integrating a mempool. But I'm happy to, do you think that's necessary, or we just leave it to individual implementers to decide what would be the best way forward?
I think it's necessary because you don't want your other peers to be fanning things out to you multiple times and trying to use a different ID because you have to be deduplicating on the same ID as your peers are. Quick question though, I haven't been able to find anything in the libp2p documentation that actually talks about like message ID across topics. It talks about message ID within a topic. And it's totally possible that all the implementations actually do the deduplication across topics. I'm a little bit concerned that if it's not actually written explicitly in the spec that the message deduplication is across topics, that we might come into some implementation in some language that, just has a map that they scoped to a particular topic that they use for deduplication or a set or something. So I think we might want to make sure we get some feedback from the libp2p team. I think you said you're having a call with them, so that's perfect.
So I wrote two tests across two different topics to ensure that we are getting a unique message ID. I tried it with both the TypeScript implementation as well as the Go. I should probably try it with Rust as well, but I'm meeting the guys from Protocol Labs sometime next week anyway for the Python related one, but I'll bring this up with them and see if they have some suggestions on how we can handle this.
Great. Yeah, it would just make me a lot more comfortable if it was just there was a sentence in the docs that were just like, this is deduplication is globally done.
Fair enough. Documentation on specific to this was pretty hard to find. I had to dig into a lot of code before I could arrive at the solution. But I did test it and it was working okay. So, but anyway, I hear you, and I'll definitely bring this up with the call with Protocol Ops when I meet them next week.
Awesome. Appreciate the work.
Yo, are you happy with the solution proposed, or do you have any concerns, or do you foresee any other attack scenarios there?
You mean regarding the message ID solution?
Yes.
No, I don't really know the protocol very well, but if I understand correctly, it does ensure that only one copy of a message will be delivered to each node, regardless of how many topics it is part of, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, as far as I understand, it does exactly what we need. So you can subscribe to as many mempools as you like, and you're guaranteed to get a message. You're guaranteed to get it once. I don't see any issues. Now, of course, there may be some details that I'm not aware of at the protocol level.
Wait, Partha, another question. Is this deduplication done as part of the protocol, or is it done on the receiving side?
No, it's done as a part of the protocol itself. So how libp2p internally functions is there are two sets of each peer you are connected to is categorized as either a full peer or a metadata only peer. So with the full peers, you exchange data specific to the topics that you're subscribed to. But with metadata peer, you notify occasionally, and I have message of all non-subscribed topics as well. So there is always a probability that even if a particular peer does not receive a particular message on the topic they're subscribed to, they might receive it through other means from the metadata only peers. So the solution that I was suggesting right now would ensure that duplication doesn't happen when two peers are subscribed to multiple topics. However, in case you still do not propagate a message to a particular peer, there is still a probability that you'd receive it through the metadata only connected peers as well. All right, that's it. I mean,
You'll get one, but if one of these would send it to you, it will only send one copy of it, right?
that's correct. Yeah.
So it doesn't really change. It doesn't really change the numbers here.
No, it doesn't. The only issue might arrive is that if a particular peer is only subscribed to one particular topic and not multiple topics, and then how do you say, in the scenario that you described earlier, say a bundler A supports both the canonical mempool as well as an alt mempool 1, but bundler B only subscribes to say what do you say, the alt mempool and not to the canonical mempool, then bundler A will not be broadcasting a user op that satisfies both the criteria to bundler B. However, bundler B would still be able to receive that particular user op from anyone else that it's connected to via the peer, metadata only network.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I understand. Right, thank you.
Cool. Yeah, the other one, progress on the P2P side on Skanda, we are still going ahead as planned. There are a couple of teething issues which we are sorting out, and hopefully we should have a fully functional one in the next couple of weeks. We'll keep you posted on how we're going. And I didn't have much time to look into the Hive tests over the last 2 weeks because I was looking at a solution for this, but hopefully I'll be able to progress on that front and keep you guys informed. The next one topic was on the Python libp2p discussion. As I pointed out in our Telegram group the other day, we have two options that I'd like to understand from the Candid team what they would like to consider and what are their reasons for that decision.
Yes, all the components for B2B, they are almost implemented in Python, but they haven't been maintained for almost years. And also the implementations are probably not stable and not complete.
Yep.
So right now, like I've been experimenting and it kind of works. I don't know exactly if it will be up to standard or not. Yeah, that's currently what we are doing. We are experimenting with the existing implementation. There is another two options that we can work with is creating an extension using Rust or using Rust or maybe any other language that has a stable lib2p implementation, or actually like creating another application for the lib2p part that would start with the Python bundler to handle the lib2p communication. So for now, I will continue like experimenting with the existing libraries, and I will wait for the test for maybe if there is some kind of test already existing, so that I can check the existing libraries if they are up to standard or not. Yeah, this is what we're thinking about right now.
Right. So the advice from Stokes was to not use the existing Python implementation at all. He reckons it's totally unstable and it would lead to a lot of interop issues. So his suggestion or recommendation was to build either a sidecar that you can plug into your Voltaire bundler, or probably write a wrapper in Python for the Rust implementation. Having said that, as I told earlier, I have a meeting scheduled with Protocol Labs sometime next week. I don't have the date yet, but they agreed that they'll meet on reviving the existing Python implementation of libp2p. But we don't know the turnaround times. I think, in my opinion, the quickest way is probably to create a wrapper. But if we decide to go ahead with that, like to understand, we already have that dedicated team and separate Telegram group set up for that. So uh, do we arrive at an estimate of how much it would take for the libraries that we have, so that we can understand the scope of work and probably a cost? Would that help you as well before we talk to Protocol Labs? Um, I think we are all in agreement that rebuilding or restarting the work on PyLibp2p is going to take a longer time, and costs involved, and maintaining the library in the long run would be quite expensive. So does anybody
Yeah,
else? Yep.
yeah, sure, go ahead. Yeah,
No, go ahead, Sharif. You were saying something.
yeah, yeah. Of course, lib2b it will probably take a lot of work. Yeah. Yes. I guess Stokes said that it's very unstable to work with. So I guess like the two possible solution is I don't know actually if also the DHT library for routing is also unstable or not. He said it's not unstable.
I guess so, because Stokes said that it's not been maintained for a while. So I think if we decide to reuse it, we might have to rewrite or upgrade all of them, and to consider the code base as stale. Because even if it works on the Python side, when you start to interact with other implementations, it might fail.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess the viable two options is to either create an extension or try to or try to complete application to handle the lib2b using another language that would start with the bundler. So I will see about if which one it will be easier, if the extension will be like if it will uh, if the extension is viable or not to work with the lib2b. It will be easy to implement, or it would be easier to just like write the for lib2b part in another language.
Okay. Would you suggest we work on this as a separate work stream and have separate set of meetings once Sharif confirms what he'd like to proceed with? Or do you want to include that as a part of this particular call going forward?
Yeah, is this a question for me?
No, I was asking you.
Well, I don't know how much discussion we need around it. I think we can start talking about it on these calls, and if it becomes too much and we don't want everyone to participate, then we can have a separate one.
All right, sounds good.
Let's first get it rolling after the call with the Protocol Labs, and after we understand where we're going, we'll see how much we need to do here.
All right, sounds good. So the other question, does anybody else have any questions on the P2P spec? Just trying to understand how others are progressing on the integration. I mean, you can go for it, any one of you, the other implementers. Hazim?
We haven't started yet. We'll be looking at it pretty soon, as soon as we get to it, but haven't started on our side.
Yeah, I haven't started the implementation for the Go bundler yet, but I'm hoping to get that started probably in the next week or two.
Okay.
Yeah, same status for the Rust bundler. Probably next week we are going to start it.
That's all I had in my list. If anybody else has any questions or anything they'd like to raise or discuss.
So our update that we're also developing currently the P2P layer in our bundler, in our reference implementation. So it's probably not going to be as complete and production ready as yours, but if we are working on at least having the APIs that are described in the spec. At least completed, so we can test it and have something that other people here can see if and when they start implementing their own P2P layer. So hopefully in the next several weeks we are going to have something ready as well.
All right, cool. Thanks, Shaf. Yeah, I had nothing else on the agenda. Does anybody have any questions to raise? Anything to discuss? All right. I guess then we're done then. Thank you.
Partha, I wanted to ask, what do you define as topics?
Topic is the mempool ID, Chirag. It's, by default, every canonical mempool for every chain is basically an IPFS hash of a YAML file describing what that mempool, or rather, what are the properties associated with that particular mempool. And this hash is published on both ETH Infinitism repo, and we also pin the file on IPFS. So any P2P, any bundler that is supposed to support a particular mempool has to subscribe to that particular hash.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So our Biconomy also, have you guys commenced to integration of the P2P spec?
No, Partha, we haven't started. So we will possibly like in 2 to 3 weeks, we'll look into it just to see like how conversations are going. So that's why I started joining.
All right, sounds good. Okay, then.
I have one question. I left a question yesterday in the core devs Telegram group. So Hazim updated the bundler spec test, and when doing the storage slots testing, the call data is set to the address of the storage smart contract, and basically if you run the estimate guess on this user operation, the execution reverts because the call data is set only to the address of the storage smart contract. And I was wondering if that's okay.
Can you repeat the question?
So in the last commit to the bundler spec test, the user operation for the storage slots has the call data field set to the address of the smart contract.
Okay, that's okay. I will need to look at it. But what do you mean the call data is set? The user of call data is set to the address? Because this is it shouldn't be the address. It should be the actual call data that's being called by the wallet. So I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, the change was that the state smart contract is deployed in the test, and then the call data is set only to the address of this smart contract.
Yeah, so I added that change in because the storage rule test was missing the case where an account was referencing an associated storage on deployment. So in order to do this, I had to build the state, like I had to build a state contract in order to test out that scenario. But I don't think it should be failing any other tests, right? So what's the problem?
Exactly. I'm not sure I'm following the issue that you got with the test.
Yeah, so in our bundler, when we receive the user operation, we check if the call gas limit, if the call gas limit is set correctly, and by checking that, we are running the if estimate gas endpoint on the execution client, and if you run it with this call data, the execution reverts.
Okay, so you're saying that if estimate gas reverts, and it should revert with the new user operation that was added as to the test. Okay,
Yeah.
that not only that it reverts, but it should revert. So if I'm trying it with other bundles, for example, our bundler in reference implementation, then it should revert. Okay, so let me check that, and I'll get back to you with an answer. But if it's something that I can fix through the test, then I will. But otherwise, I need to take a look at the test case again.
Okay, thank you.
Right, and speaking of this condition of accessing associated storage during deployment, Hazim, I don't know if you saw, but we are considering an exception to this rule when the factory is staked, because if the factory is staked, then it can be blamed for a failure, a validation failure, like an invalidation by the account during deployment, because it knows what's being deployed. So we still need to think about the security implications, whether it opens any DOS vector, but it seems safe and could make things simpler for account implementers. So we'll update in the group, but we are considering that it may be possible.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds good. So yeah, the reason I brought that up was because I was working with Zero Dev, and yeah, the contract implementation, the way they built that contract implementation requires accessing associated storage on deployment. I think like the current workaround for them is utilizing the call code opcode in a way to kind of bypass this, so that on the initial deployment, it looks like it's a delegate call, but then on subsequent transaction, it's just a regular call. But like if there's a safe way that we can bypass, or if we can like remove this restriction, then I think it reduces a lot of complexity.
Yeah, I
for-
think
for
it's,
that. Yeah.
Mhm. I think by economy also, I think by economy also would benefit from such exception if it can be made safely. So so there are at least 2 account implementations that need it. Let's see if we can. Let's everyone also think about it. See if it can be abused in any way. I hope that it can't, and then it can make things simpler.
Okay. So if nobody has any other questions, one final thing from me. I was wondering if, I mean, I'm not available next Thursday. Can we reschedule next call alone to Friday? Or if you all are available, you can continue using this room. So Friday, same time works next week alone.
Actually,
Yeah, works
Yeah,
for me.
sure.
Friday.
Friday, I won't be able to join Friday, but you can do it without me. I won't be available on Friday.
No issue. So yeah, I just wanted to give an update of how the call with Protocol Labs go. So I thought, I mean, otherwise I'm not required for this particular call. You guys can discuss, but hopefully I'm not available next Thursday alone. So anyway, I'll send out an updated invite for next call alone. Thanks.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Have a nice day, everyone.
Bye. Thanks. Bye.
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 Bye, everyone. Take care.